Hey everyone, so this week I wanted to just talk on a little bit of what we're sharing about at Claunch, and obviously, we're going to be talking about the election a little bit and kind of what that means. As our church kind of moves forward from here, we're always looking at ways of how do we apply what's going on in the world around us today into what God is trying to talk to us about, show us, and what He's trying to reveal to us on how we should move. That's what the Word tells us to do. We should be led by the Spirit. And so today I was wanting to just bring out a message that God's been kind of showing me through this last week. And it was something that I feel very strongly that the church is not going to be looking the same. We've been talking about this for a few weeks now, that the look of the church is going to be changing from here on out, because whatever side you chose or whatever side you pick, or whoever wins the presidency of this nation, the look of the church is going to be changing. If you're from one side or the other, it's so polarized in our country today that uh, what side gets elected, the church might be forced to dissipate out. The other side, we'll be seeing a lot of values of the church kind of be held up and kind of held to a standard, but I think we'll see a lot of pressure from the actual world around us. The lost will be pressuring us on the church side. So you'll still see, no matter what, the persecution of the church, I believe, will increase. And obviously, that's how it tells us in Revelation, and that's what that's what God promises to us. So it's nothing to be surprised about, but we just know that this is how the church will be looking to change. And so I wanted to be looking about. I did some study in Acts and looking what the early church looked like. But I wanted to go even further back. I wanted to go back even before the temple, uh, and go back even to the tabernacle. And I started looking at it as, what did the people see when they walked up to a tabernacle? And they walked up in Moses' day and they seen the tabernacle, and they say, well, they looked at this tent and they seen a building. They seen a place where they could kill a goat, kill a sheep. Let's throw them in the pit, and then we'll get the blood wiped all over us, and then we'll get out of here, and we'll be good for a year, whatever it took. And so you see that kind of that mindset of that church, so to speak, back then, that was just uh, their magic potion that they could just go to, and then things would be wiped out for a little while until they messed up again. And so they didn't see it as what it was truly meant to be represented as. And obviously, God was, He used that in a way to put a veil over them that they couldn't see that. And so I started digging in deeper. What did God intend for everything in the tabernacle? How did He intend it to have meaning? It had purpose. It had a resemblance and of something that was to come, a promise that was to come. And so I started looking into that. And if you pay attention to how in Exodus 36, and actually all the latter part of Exodus, it talks about the tabernacle and what everything meant, what everything's, where it's positioned, where it's supposed to be, what it's made of. And so if you start reading through all that kind of stuff, and you'll start looking at that, everything outside that was made of metal was bronze. Bronze was a representation of our sin. That was the altar where you burned everything, that because bronze was used, it has a high heat tolerance, and so bronze was used for that because there was a fire going in it all the time. We have the altar of incense, that was made out of bronze, and blood was sprinkled upon it, and so then that smoke would then rise up as an aroma to God, and all this other kind of stuff. You start to see everything had meaning. Everything. Go inside, into everything inside was made of gold. You had the lampstand, um, you had all these posts, you had the curtains, and everything, even the colors had meaning. The colors of, the blue, purple, and scarlet on the curtains. There's a reason, and it's actually stated in that way every time: blue, purple, and scarlet. Blue, if you followed the translation of that, blue would represent. We know that heaven, they would follow. God would come down from above, so we recognize that if we look up towards heaven, that you see a blue sky, so that would represent that. And then you had to have scarlet on the bottom, which would be blood and death. That's the color of that. And so if you mix those two, if you mix heaven, blood, and death, you mix that, what do you come out with? You come out with purple, meaning royalty. And so you find those kind of things, and it starts striking you as interesting that God has actually positioned everything for a reason. And He positioned Everything that went through, even the veil into the Holy of Holies, all this other kind of stuff. We know all that stuff has meaning. Why don't we apply it to today? If the people back then walked up to the tabernacle and they seen it as just a tent, well, they didn't appreciate what the church was. They didn't appreciate or have a full appreciation, I should say, for the tabernacle. But do we have a full appreciation of what the church is today? Do we look at the church as exactly what God has intended it to be? Do we look at Christ as what he was intended to be? The Bible tells us that as he is, so are we in this world. And so do we look at Christ in every aspect of God, how he created him, what was important, what's meaningful? Do we look at him with his personality, with his emotions, with his character, with his demeanor, with his, just his appearance? His outward appearance was nothing fancy. That's what the word tells us. He didn't come looking like Fabio. So, why was that? Why didn't he look like that? Well, if you see it in the tabernacle, they cover the outside with badger skins. Well, there's nothing appealing about a badger skin. So why is it that we don't see the church as he intended it? So with the troubling times of this country, what we're going through now, will we look to see the church as he intended it? Do we look for the details? I'm telling you right now that I believe that the churches with the outward appearance of just trying to appeal to everybody will not stand these coming days. It's what's on the inside that will make the details, the fine things, that the fine tuning that comes about in a church. That's what's essential. Those that have a home church, that understand the meaning of a home church, that are dedicated, devoted to their church, like the apostles. They were devoted to, you can find it in Acts, when the early church, they were devoted to the apostles' teaching, the breaking of bread, the fellowship, and the prayer. Those are the things that are on the inside. Nothing about the outside. Nothing. And so it's not even about how good the music sounds or what color the wallpaper are or the carpet. Doesn't matter about any of that stuff. But what's essential, I tell you, at Claunch, our greatest thing that we've had right now is we got a new outhouse. I mean, there's nothing appealing about Claunch that would probably strike anybody to stop. And so, but what's on the inside, man, you couldn't stop us right now for what we have going on. I mean, it's a movement that hadn't happened around this part of the world in a long time. And I'm glad to be a part of that. And so it's something that I believe that we should start looking to the church as it really is. Do we look at the church, and what will it look like for the days ahead? I'm telling you to start looking for the things that follow the Bible's teaching. Look at how an early church prospered. That's how we'll get through those times. Listen, I encourage you to be looking for those things in the church. I pray you have a good week. I pray that this might enlighten you and encourage you to go find a good church if you don't have one. And so I pray for you. We thank you for joining in on us, and you guys have a good week.